Hey guys, it's Manga here with a new video, and in this video we're kind of going to go over the importance of concept art, at least to me, especially within the context of making my own series, Apple Black. Throughout the video I'm going to be going into more detail on what concept art is and why you do it and all that good stuff, especially for people who are new to the concept. I'm going to be scratching the surface, at least in layman's terms. And I'll also briefly go over some of the things that I felt were mistakes that I made during the early stages of the concept phase of my series Apple Black. All trying to make sure you guys, with your series, whatever it may be, whatever your project is, to not make the same mistakes, do better. Do better. So let's get into it. According to the Wikipedia, concept art is a form of illustration used to convey an idea for use in film, video games, animation, comic books, and manga as well, or other media before it's put into its final product. It also goes on to say other truths like concept art is developed through several iterations, multiple solutions are explored before settling on a final design. The goal here is to convey/explore a potential design rather than know everything from the jump. Now, concept art can be broken down into several types, as you would imagine, like we said, for film, animation, music videos, comics, manga, the list goes on. If you're interested in a career within concept arts, then, based on the type of person you are and doing the research you need to do, you'll kind of figure out where you fit in. Usually I find concept arts to be very good practice, in fact, industry practice. And the goal there is just to explore something and figure out how it works through the art. Trying to figure out all the inner workings of a design. Maybe it'd be a gun. Okay, how does the gun get locked and loaded? How does it get holstered? Figuring all of that within some kind of illustration or sometimes a character design sheet. So some character design sheets and illustrations can be considered concept arts, but they're not all concept art. Some of them are finalized, finished, in some cases even for promotional purposes, but it's usually considered concept art when the illustration or character design sheet has a purpose at its core, and that purpose is to explore the subject. Draw different versions of the same thing, figuring out which one's the best one, mixing and matching good ideas to maybe form a superior version of the same thing, and just keep doing it over and over and over until you have a final product. Now, obviously, there's several ways of doing this. You just have to keep in mind whoever is going to be looking at it, especially if you're working in teams. But for me, being a one-man army, I draw it however I want to draw it. As long as I can read and understand what I'm putting to paper, then I'm fine, right? So all the designs you're seeing here, at least within this sketchbook, are me exploring certain things and then maybe doing some storyboards for comic pages, because storyboards also kind of serve as concept art to a degree, because I'm exploring how I want the panels to be placed. I'm exploring the camera angles that I want to use for each panel. I'm exploring a lot of things before I settle on a final look or layout for a page. And then I go into start creating the actual page, and that is the part where I'm creating a final product. So storyboards, in a way, kind of fall within that same concept art category. So like I said, some illustrations, some sketches, some character design sheets could be considered concept art, but not all of them actually are. Usually, there's always a part of it that feels like a draft. It's less likely to be considered concept art if all the ideas are already fixed and sorted. Now, for my old artist mistakes, I didn't do a lot of concept art. I did do some, again, especially if you consider storyboards as concept art, but just concept arts for the characters and the world building and the world I've, put together for my series Apple Black. I actually didn't do as much for it. I would say I did, but I didn't explore too much. I didn't spend that much time trying to figure out a character design or how a character should look. I did, but sometimes I feel, did I put enough? It's not that I'm not happy with the designs I currently have, but there's that part of me that goes, you never know, maybe if I spend a little more time. So now moving forward with my series, I always try to spend enough time before I introduce a character, especially if the character plays a major role. But I don't want you guys to get the impression that I didn't do it, because I spent a lot of years before I actually put my series out. In fact, I took time to explore doing other series to even prepare myself, not necessarily concept art, but at least in the sense of creating something that would be at least up to par, at least industry-wise. There's just that little voice in my head that maybe goes, maybe I should spend more time, especially with the look of the world. Should I have, thought a little further about certain buildings and things of that nature? And that's why even with remastering the first volume, I did improve a couple things with, say, the guild where the sorcerers are for Apple Black. And that's why with the remaster, there's this double spread page of a building drawing that wasn't there before, but is now. So concept art is not just character design, it's literally everything. It's the design, it's prop design, it's environmental design, it's character design, it's everything. So very subtle redesigns were actually part of the Apple Black remasters. And for those who don't understand, Apple Black is my series. I released it years ago, but recently I did a few remasters, touching things up. I added 2 chapters in between chapter 1 and 2. So the book has a fairly new, fresh, and better experience in my opinion. Definitely a better first impression for people who are just picking it up. While everything else is pretty much the same with a few improvements on the grammar, terminology of certain things, art here and there, and then, slipping in a few pages here and there to improve the pacing of the series. I did it for Volume 1 and Volume 2. It was more so in Volume 1, less so in Volume 2. There are literally over 60 new pages in Volume 1's remaster, while in Volume 2, I literally added only 6 pages. I learned from my past mistakes doing Volume 1, and so I made less of those doing Volume 2. An example of that would be Caesar. I did take my time drawing Caesar, especially if you look at my old videos, you can literally see me doing it. You'll see Caesar in all of the different iterations that I thought of before I actually set it in stone. And that's one thing with the way I come up with the designs. Nothing's actually set in stone, at least until they appear within the series. At that point, they're more in stone than ever. And doing all of this has given me peace of mind moving forward for Volume 3, which is on the way. So, starting out with my series, I don't want you guys to make the same mistakes I made. The overall mindset is to kind of take your time before you actually put anything out, and concept art is part of that. Writing is part of it, taking a step back and reviewing what you have is part of it. Taking your time with the storyboards is part of it, but definitely concept art for the world, props, characters, that's part of it. So it's not just concept art. There were a lot of things that I think I could have done better. I was still happy with what I had, and a lot of people still enjoyed the book. It's more of a personal thing that bothered me, and I'm so much happier with it now. And moving forward, it's not a mistake I'm going to be making anymore. I'm going to be spending a lot more time with the way I design anything, now that I've fixed all the things that bothered me. One thing I will say regarding the whole concept artwork I've done so far for my series is I still find creative ways to, rather than going back, changing things, more so changing it creatively moving forward with the writing. And I think it kind of shows growth as well, not just within the series, but also with me as an artist and the way I think. An example of that would be Sano's design in chapter 1, right? I think it made sense. It's also a representation of where I was at the time. And then to make that creative change, to then see part of the design change compared to what it is now, I think it shows growth. So I don't necessarily want to erase that, because I think it's also good to see. It's almost like I have an idea for one design right now, and maybe I might have a better idea later, but rather than going back and erasing all the stuff I've done prior, because I've debuted it, that that's what you would have to do if you want to change it. But rather than doing that, I kind of treat it like a Pokemon and have it evolve over time. And people do that. You can say the same thing about my art style and just the way I draw. That's also improving over time. So with the remasters, I didn't try to improve every single thing. I think it's going to be part of my journey, part of my process, and I'm kind of embracing that as well. But tweaking things that maybe just bothered me a little too much, or things that I just feel wouldn't pass, especially if I'm going to have to compete with other top series and bookstores. Just things I felt needed a change. That's what I changed. But I didn't change everything. I did embrace that part of me that, is from the past, and comparing it to where it is today. Another thing to watch out for is not letting perfection stop you from doing anything, because if I made sure that I was completely 100% ready to go, then I probably wouldn't have released my book at all, because I would still be designing stuff till today. So you need to know when to drop the pen. There are other times that I have voices in my head telling me, you know what, you did the right thing. Just keep moving, just start, and then you will evolve over time. So I put in concept art in Pinterest here. And as you can see, got some rotating design. Kind of looks like I could see something like this in Metal Gear. This here's for the Death Stranding game. I never actually played it, but Definitely looks cool. And the graphics was amazing. Hideo Kojima always, with the weird stuff, but you can clearly see some concept art stuff going on here. It's not the final, they're still like playing around with things. And I saw stuff like this in like old Metal Gear video games as well. I think this is Hideo Kojima himself. This might be Metal Gear. Some concept art for that, exploring different looks. And then this is literally a mashup. Like this is just for fun, I think. But list goes on. Got more designs over here. I'm guessing these are concept art because that's what I put in. And I believe this is Killua from Hunter x Hunter, and some background designs from like some spooky forest mountain thing going on here. Got more designs for Dead, maybe Last of Us type cityscape, and just a bunch of designs, as you can see. And so as we have things that revolve around character designs, props, the list goes on, robots, everything. You can see it kind of broken down the way you would imagine as well. Disney, fantasy, aliens, Star Wars, environments, sci-fi creatures, monsters, superhero sketches, the list goes on. Diving a little deeper, got in here an exploration, trying to figure out some horns and designs for horns. Your first idea might not be the best idea, so you want to kind of explore and do things outside the box, because you never know what's going to happen. And maybe you come up with some really cool designs, or some designs you can kind of mix and match and then put together. Put in concept art manga, you gotta see more stuff, more explorations. If these are in fact concept art, none of these designs are actually the final design. And you picking your final design you choosing your final design would depend on a certain amount of factors, maybe having to do with maybe the story of what you're putting together, and maybe some decisions within the design might be cool but might not make sense for what you're putting together, so you scrap it or you kind of keep working on it with different iterations. This looks hella cool. And it's also cool for me to see stuff like this because it gives me ideas, or at least inspiration, moving forward with whatever I'm doing, because these are really good. Maybe I'll do a video on how to draw robots and mechas and things like that. I used to have folders on DeviantArt doing the same thing. Anytime I saw a piece of art that inspired me in any way, I always kind of put it in some kind of folder or organized, and I just go to it anytime I needed a creative meal, some kind of boost, some fuel. And then you're just seeing more designs, and I just put in concept art manga, concept art anime, pretty much the same thing, at least concept art wise. But here, seeing more explorations. These are some of the things that you might see in a character design sheet, but here maybe you're going into it with the mindset that the designs here aren't necessarily final, and so as a result, these are just really good drawings, but it might not have been like the final design. Some changes may have been made. Sometimes those changes might come from a business standpoint, sometimes it might come from a creative standpoint. It just depends on what you're putting together and who are the key voices involved. See some concept art here for the shoes, trying to decide what direction to go, and they all look pretty cool. Sometimes you choose based off of the idea that you're going to be drawing this over and over again, so you don't want something too complicated, and that happens as well. That could be a reason. See more explorations, more really cool designs. I always come to Pinterest or DeviantArt or even Behance to get your creative juices flowing. Sometimes they might not be done through illustration, they might be done through any kind of 3D software. I'm not saying that that's what this is, I don't know for sure, but however you can put it together, you put it together. People have different ways of putting their illustrations together. There's concept art characters for character designs. Again, seeing more exploration here. Sometimes the exploration would be, how do we see the character without the clothes, having a clearer understanding of the character. So again, some of these could be seen as a character design sheet. It just depends on a couple things. Sometimes the idea that's being explored on the concept sheet might not necessarily be the design of the character. It could just be understanding how the clothing of the character works. It could be understanding how certain props are used, or in some cases it could just be exploring the facial expressions of the character and how they would smile, and maybe you can do several iterations drawing them angry and then picking the best one. Some really cool stuff here. This looks really good. I wonder if you guys can actually recognize some of the illustrations that we're seeing over here. So these are some really dope artists that I've never heard of. Again, some of these really boost, some of the ideas that I have in mind. Like this character over here with the halo. Santa at some point is going to have something like that, like a halo. It wouldn't look like this, but it's always cool to see what other artists are doing. Spooky stuff. I'm always impressed by the concept artwork for video games and such. Detail, rendering, some of the concept art where you're just exploring, they look like, finished stuff, which they should be, so that the people reviewing them can tell exactly, which idea is the best way to go. Got some more environmental stuff here. See some interesting designs for environments. Because environments, they're almost like characters of their own, so you really got to give them time, and you don't rush them at all. And so that was the trouble for me, especially starting out, where I'm still learning how to draw backgrounds to begin with for my manga. Then to really sit down and doing all those designs, making sure they work, all that flew through my head because I was still learning. It was in the very early stages of me wanting to put work out. So you kind of need to settle down before you make any rash decisions. I mean, look at this, really good, and you really get that sense of power, royalty, class, I don't know, money, hierarchy in some kind of political system, like a castle throne. Just know this is an important place. And it looks really unique and cool, and you kind of need to be able to do that. And again here, like I said, maybe they're just exploring several designs, exploring several expressions, facial, body, to then pick the best one. Even if maybe you're drawing a character with the same expression twice, you're choosing the one that works best. Most of these tend to have notes around them as well to kind of also let you know that they're studying it, they're figuring things out. Little notes for themselves. I do the same thing. With mechas, you also have to think about, why you're showing things you're showing. Like, what's going on with this girl's leg? Does that play a role into the actual scorpion suit here? Like, why are you making the decisions you're making? All of that kind of goes in your mind. And maybe it is for show, but you kind of need to figure that out as well. Sometimes you can see some of the designs stem from something else. In this case here, we're seeing a lot of bugs, caterpillars, butterflies, cockroaches, beetles, the list goes on. And they're kind of starting from there and mechanizing it. And it looks really cool. And you pick up some cues, especially if you're also studying them and looking at other concept art and studying it, feeding your creativity. And that's it for now, guys. In the next video, I'll do more personal work, showing you guys concept art for stuff that I'm actually doing for my series like Apple Black or BACASSI, and go into more detail about that. If you want to see that, please don't forget to smash the subscribe button, hit the like, and hit the bell so you stay notified each time I upload absolutely anything. Follow me on all my social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Check out my comic Apple Black, published and serialized on Saturday AM. Links to that and more, everything will be in the description. We actually have a crossover Avengers type event coming soon with our series for this weekend's free comic book day, so stay tuned for that and download our app. It's free. Get 2 free months of Skillshare as well. Check out my other videos. Stay tuned for more. Whyt Manga, and I'm out.